All right. Well, everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the American Praetorians live stream. This month we've got the Emperors of Galaxy's Edge and Wargate books, Nick Cole, aka Chaos Actual, and Jason Anspach, and also the editor-in-chief of Wargate Books, Walt Robillard. Robillard or Robillard?
I answer to either.
Okay. So,
I'm pretty sure it's a witness protection ID, so it doesn't matter.
I say Robillard in my heart.
And we love you for it.
And, so fancy and give it a romance language feel.
So,
Depends on what genre he's writing in. When he writes romance, it's Robillard.
Ostensibly, we're going to talk about Wargate books this month, but if you've watched any of these streams, you know that we end up talking about anything and everything. So, a little over a year ago, Chaos Actual himself hit me up and said, I've got a project in mind, if you're interested. Well, when Nick asks if you're interested, you say yes.
That's how you get on working parties.
True
Do you
enough.
know how to, do you have a driver's license?
Hey, Boot, are you underage enough to DD?
I need 2 volunteers. What's the score? I need 1 volunteer.
Yeah, I'd watched Peter, and Peter and I had talked a lot, and we both have a love of Tolkien, and he'd hit me up for some, just I think not writing advice, but just like, what are your thoughts on this, or mentorship, or people come to me a lot, writers come to me a lot, and think that I know something, and so like 50-50, you're going to get a good idea or a bad idea. So I think my average is a little low right now, but with Peter, it was good. And he knocked it out of the park. And I said, hey, we're doing this new thing, which is called Wargate. For anybody who hasn't hip to it, Wargate is summed up in 3 easy sentences, which is modern military unit, fantasy setting. So think something like Peter's setting, which is sort of Scandinavian mythology, Forgotten Ruin, which is Dungeons and Dragons. We got Doc coming online here with a John Carter Mars style universe. I'm talking to other people with really crazy ideas and fun stuff. The third component is Perpetual Taco Machine, which is a Walt Robillard founded phrase. And it just basically means a machine or a device or a MacGuffin, however you want to put it, that keeps your modern military unit survived and killing orcs or trolls, Scandinavian trolls, whatever you are, or sea mermaids with vampires, whatever that kind of stuff is. And it's weird. I've talked to a lot of people about this. And when Jason and I came up with the concept, what we said to ourselves is, wow, this is a great idea. We want to control this new idea. So what we're going to do, like good Americans, we want to absolutely capitalize it. We said, let's tell all our writer friends, the ones that we know, hey, we've got a great idea. Would you write a book series? And then you can draft on the success of this. And we told 10 people. And 8 of them were like, this is a great idea. I should do it. And they did nothing. But Peter was one of the ones who said, I see the wisdom in this. I think I will attempt something. And he just started grinding it out and doing it. And honestly, I am duly impressed with how great this series is done. Right, Jason?
It's a wonderful series.
Switch from mute, stop painting.
Yeah, exactly. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I might have pocket muted, so I wasn't sure. Yeah, no, it's a really great series. And I remember, I think it was at Dragon Con, and I basically shut myself in the room and just read over that first manuscript and gave Peter notes, but you could tell right away with Ice and Monsters that it was going to be exactly the kind of story that people that dig Wargate were going to want. And that's it. I mean, Peter's like the first guy out of the gate, and he's been absolutely crushing it ever since.
Yeah, and I think initially he's like, oh, well, I'm writing this really high-tech kind of Clancy-esque real world, military thing, and I got a good audience and everything like that. And I think I think call me out if I'm just talking out of my ass or whatever bullshit. But you take that very seriously and everything like this. And with this project, I just said you should just have fun with this because Marines are never going to fight orcs. I know we all want that to happen. It's never going to happen. There's never going to be like a wizard that goes after one of your amphibious vehicles. But wouldn't it be cool if it did? And so like, this is a fun opportunity. And I think once I kind of released you just to be free and have fun, like that was, I think you enjoyed that aspect because I think you take your other stuff pretty hard attack serious, right?
A lot of it, yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of fun to have fun.
I've got my somewhat more fun 80s action adventure series, but the more serious thrillers, yeah, there's definitely the series is a heart attack element to some of those.
Yeah, and I think a lot. No, go ahead.
I was grinding through the ton of research about the invasion of Taiwan about 3 or 4 months ago, just going, please don't let it clack off before I get this book done.
That's why you didn't want it to clack off, right? Yeah.
That's the only reason possibly to not want to see millions of people slaughtered.
Yeah, or the FBI scoop you up for being too on the nose.
Which one? They did that for the screenwriter of Lethal Weapon 3, or no, it was Die Hard 3, which started as a Lethal Weapon script.
Right. Yeah.
They
which is
getting the Federal Reserve and all that stuff. Somebody in the government looked at it and was like, "This can work." So they like roped him up, threw him in a van, brought him into questioning.
It's true. I know a few science fiction writers who actually work for the government and do think tanks, and like it's not uncommon for the alphabet people to circulate among science fiction writers. And it always, like when I started off, I worked in post-apocalyptic fiction, and that would happen a lot in that. And they would get writers together for, I think, kind of like weekends or conferences, and they would say, break the world for us and tell us what happens. And I was so good that they never asked me to participate.
They were like,
well, you're
in
also,
a way other than
also
zombies,
the reason that we'll never get an AI, working class is because they saw what happened with that.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't like that one. That was bad. But no, I knew writers who were getting called in to the DoD, and they would be asked to do this stuff. And so when someone just accidentally from Hollywood gets it right, or shows them something that they're paid all the money to see, it does freak them out and stuff like that. So I'm always surprised that they don't scout around in the indie community more, because the people who are getting trade pub big book contracts have gotten nowhere near real world situations. And I'm pretty sure I can name at least 2 people in this conversation today of all part of who've done things that the United States wouldn't want people to know about. And they're literally sitting around thinking like, I wonder what I should write about.
Well, that's
selling
also,
books doing it. Yeah.
With the Wargate stuff, you guys are getting into the strategic tabletop games and the tactical tabletop games. And one of your fans and a friend of mine, Ty Beard, he came up with a tank combat game that the DoD actually adopted for their simulations.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So
I remember
some of the alphabet people came to have a talk with Tom Clancy once upon a time.
Yep.
And,
yeah.
Though there's some interesting stuff about that I heard from Jim Curtis on a panel at LTV a few years ago.
Oh, wow.
Clancy was actually working for some of the alphabet people from the get-go as essentially a disinformation agent aimed at the Soviet Union.
That's true. I could see that. Yeah, I mean, if you look at a lot of the stuff that went down in the 80s, a lot of it was so much psychological warfare on the part of the United States. Because I'm an 80s soldier and Walt is, and like the realities of the Fulda Gap is that it was little more than a delaying action. And when they start giving SF guys, rucksack nukes, it's not a like, hey, we're going to win. And I think the United States wanted to get to shock and awesome, and they knew that at that time they were going to do it. So, you know, who do they use? They use this actor to come in, and the actor starts saying all kinds of crazy things. Like, I don't know if you've caught these gems. Most people don't remember the time that Reagan said, "Oh, I just found out that we can lift over 300 people into orbit," and that freaked the Russians out because that meant that we were using troop transports into orbit. And, you know, then there was the Tom Clancy stuff like, oh, what if there was a secret, super secret submarine that no one could detect? And oh yeah, write it about Russians, but you're probably writing it with your DoD defense contacts. So it was like the 80s was some absolutely brilliant, you know, warfare.
Oh, yeah. And one of the sort of the clincher that Jim pointed out was that a first-time novelist doesn't get picked up by U.S. Naval Institute Press.
That's true. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. It's good to look back and note things. I find it odd that the guy died at 66 or whatever of cancer or whatever, like, you know, but you know, who knows, maybe he'd outlived his usefulness or things like that. But real world military thrillers, it's a lot of fun. Wargate, I think that we're doing things, I think that we're doing things for fun and things like that. But I think Jason and I and Walt have had a sense, like kind of seeing what the military is going through, that what we're writing here and what we're writing in Galaxy's Edge. I think it's not any big mission, but it's something we think about when we write this stuff. It's a preservative attempting to preserve warrior culture, because I think we might be having a serious identity crisis with warrior culture. And whatever the powers that be or whoever wants to come along and say things and blah, 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 that's fine and great. And you can like, you know, I forget what it was, as Elon Musk came out and he said, oh, you know, eventually drone warfare will be the only warfare. And it's like, that will never be the case. No. You will always need some private from Kentucky to go stand at an intersection or on the top of a mountain and say, I own this. And your drone warfare, that'll last about the first 2 weeks. And then you'll be digging around for all the people that you don't like to go pick up a rifle and fight. And what we're seeing right now, not to get political, he said as he got political, but a war on warrior culture, a war on maledom, all that kind of stuff that everybody in this conversation has talked about. And so what I like to think, in some little way, you know, we're doing the same thing that Clancy was doing back in the 80s, is, you know, we're making the contest of arms, dudes who go stack bodies, tip of the spear, line guys, Marines, striker units and stuff like that. We're showing, like, and it's the fun of doing it in a fantasy situation, is we don't have to get caught up in the real world politics, which right now, like, yeah, write a Taiwan thing. It feels like garbage. Like, how could you write an honest conflict when the people manipulating the conflicts aren't being honest at all? Everybody who was in the GWAT, Peter, you've told me some of your experiences. Walt's told me some of his. That's when you have the White House interested in kill chains or, you know, making people go out and patrol without ammo and stuff like that, you can't write that kind of novel and have that be enjoyable to people, because frankly, it's enraging. And so what we're doing here is we're getting to play with, like, hey, here's a Marine unit going to attack fantasy creatures. This is how they would do it. This is how they would hit the beach. This is how they would, you know, do reconnaissance, organize themselves, communicate, resolve inter-squad conflicts, you know, basically use all the stuff that we learned in training and all those kinds of things, and then apply them in a real world setting. That is as legit as what's the SFX exercise in North Carolina where they attack the fictional nation.
Robin Sage.
Yeah, Robin Sage. It's the things that we're doing here are as legit as Robin Sage. And I think the Marines have their same things when they storm. In Pendleton, they all attack the imaginary cities on the beach down there between San Diego and San Clemente. And I'm sure that there's a story that goes with that. Well, I think in Wargate, we're doing the same thing.
Yeah, the rough thing is going to be when the government comes and uses you guys as consultants the way that they did with Clancy, but for the fantasy stuff. Because then they know something we don't. You're like, all right, what portal did you open?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, that's part of my plan, how to get out of the FEMA camps, is that I will now be useful. They'll be like, hey, we locked this asshole up, but he was right about the orcs coming through the Wargate, so we got to get him out. I'm like, see, bitches, I told you. I got to walk.
We just had a platoon go through some mysterious fog bank, and they never came out, so...
Yeah, exactly. So
that is putting a lot of faith in those
Kurt
people.
Russell to go in and get them.
Yeah. I think that's putting entirely too much faith in those people to turn around and go, yeah, maybe we were wrong about this, right? Not a chance.
I think,
Like,
Jason, don't
obviously,
destroy my insurance policy.
Well, to some extent, Nick, with what you were talking about, the whole how can you necessarily write something that's not going to be either blatant propaganda or just not believable. That's why I've largely gone with contractors and basically non-state actors for my military thrillers, is because my initial excuse was it gives me a little bit more flexibility that I would not necessarily have if it was actually dealing with actual officers in chains of command and cockroaches that sit in their air conditioning and stare at a pred feed all day.
Yeah, plus that lets you get a full roster because nobody's ever deployed with a full unit. So
nobody's ever exactly. Yeah, well, I mean, when everybody's getting like $250 a contract, people show up. But I guess I would say this: you're one of the few people, Peter, that is ahead of the curve, because I think the next major conflicts will all be fought with mercenary armies or contractors. I think if we do have a civil war inside of the United States, it is going to be contractors. You okay there, Jason?
Sometimes people aren't
Did you
careful
fall
when you're on air. No,
should have hired a contractor.
Yeah.
That was,
I think that I think even if we face and I think everybody's talking about it right now, so why not talk about it? Some kind of domestic internal conflict. I think that it will be contractor driven on the side of the government or the powers that be, versus local warlord driven, which will be us, which will probably be Peter. So we're entering the age of the private army. I think that was tested late.
Oh, the government's upset. They don't want him speaking the truth.
He went full Cylon.
Take your Leaky helmet off.
that's California internet right there.
Yeah.
That's a rolling blackout just hitting it.
Well, while we're waiting for Nick to get it back, since we've already gone down the rabbit hole, usually it's about hour 2 or 3 that we go into the deep politics, but
that doesn't work with Nick.
Yeah.
That's
Even
first
in
base
the
material
private
for Nick.
sector, comms never work. So
I've in some ways I've been looking into this for the next thriller series that's coming up later this year. There are some elements to where some of the next war has already started.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is that some people tend to think in terms of discrete wars in discrete places, that it doesn't necessarily always work that way. And that's kind of something I've been trying to touch on with my serious military thriller stuff for years now.
Just happy.
Realizing I was about
Makes people feel
3
good.
years ahead of the curve.
hey, he's back.
He's
They let
back.
him do that.
I'm sorry if I get a call on my phone, it just kicks me out. Ever since I did the Zapple update, everything's worse. So I was just saying, I think, Peter, you're ahead, because I think everything going forward, even the thing that legitimate governments want to do, I don't think they're going to actually be using the military anymore, because I think right now internally inside the United States, they know that the military they have is worthless, and the military that they that is worth something, specifically the Marines, specifically SF, specifically the 82nd Airborne, those bunch of knuckle dragger hillbillies, they can't trust those forces. So they're going to use mercenaries. So I think you're ahead of the curve on that, actually. Long answer, short on content.
Of course, the other thing with most of the contractors who are out there are mostly the GWAT guys. You don't trust them either.
Yeah, they're hoping they can buy that, or if you really look into it, there's a collateral aspect in which they're gonna make sure it's very mob. They're gonna make sure that these guys understand their ass is owned. So I don't know. I could be wrong. You know what? I hope I'm wrong. But contractors are the way forward. But that's not what we write generally. And so, like, if you went on to Amazon right now and tried to write a quote unquote contractor novel or whatever, there are people that would get it. I've written a science fiction one, and I'm not sure the audience truly understands what PMCs are. So I think, you can say space mercenaries, and some people get that and stuff like that. This is still not a term that is downloaded over the zeitgeist of the public consciousness. And with respect to the Amazon algorithm, you're not necessarily ready to sell. But if you say these keywords, Marines, SEALs, U.S. Army Rangers, you're gonna get an automatic instant audience that's always searching for those things. And so they're more likely to jump in there and buy that. And so how do we write those novels with respect to real world situations? I think people can go out back into the past and do revisionist history. People could write pretend novels right now, but I don't think that they would reflect legitimately most people's military experience. Or, thanks to God, we can write these sort of fantasy meets modern military novels where we actually can tell a real military story. We just set it alongside some goofy ass shit.
Yeah, and who wouldn't want to read a book about SF going in and working with Goblin Indige to take out the local warlock?
I have no idea. Right now, it's funny. Right now, I'm reading a story that Walt Robillard in this conversation is writing for Forgotten Ruin, and he's writing basically an Army Ranger. Walt was an Army Ranger, working with a Dwarven Indig sapper team. Would you call them sappers, Walt?
Oh yeah. These guys are definitely definitely one with the boom.
And it's kind of fun because
we're going to make those caves one way or another, right?
Yeah. Ranger, it would seem almost like in a certain way with demo and tunneling and things like that. And that's an aspect that modern Rangers are starting to get into, which is tunneling and cave breaking on levels. Like, someone kind of told me some inside information. I probably shouldn't share that here. But they were telling me kind of what the Rangers are getting into now. And I was like, why in the hell are they doing that? Because it was some pretty mind-blowing stuff having to do with tunnels and caves and underground bunkers and things like that. And the fun application of what Walt is doing is the Rangers are actually learning from the dwarves, who are kind of masters of spelunking, working with stone, getting things open. And it's this really brilliantly fun novel that almost I think the way that Jason and I are writing Forgotten Ruin, it's more like the one SF guy and the Rangers are kind of getting the Indigs up to speed on how to modern warfare. Instead, Walt's taken it in a new direction where the Indigs kind of like hip them to how it's done. It's kind of fun. Mm-hmm. It's very fun, in fact.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, I just want to see a dwarf clack off an APOP over a minefield and possibly some enemies.
Well, it's fun too because, if you've been overseas for longer than 5 minutes, you have a tendency to see how you react to the Indigs and the Indigs react to you. I mean, as guys who go over, we tend to gravitate toward the food and some of the stuff that you see, like shamaf and stuff like that. But they start to gravitate to things that we do, like tactics. How do we enter and exit a vehicle? How do we set up our gear? And 1 minute you see this dude, he's got a freaking unicorn patch on the front of his armor, and then the next day you look in and that's all clean and his pouches are set up like yours. So I played with that a little bit in the book too, because at one point they're looking at these dwarves, clad in armor, scale mail, they've got leather Birkins over it. They kind of, as Nick has described them in other books, they're like an Amish biker gang, right? So
Do they put the unit patches in their beard just to Velcro to it?
don't you threaten me with a good time. Right. So what happens is at one point, they're chalking up to go to this next piece, and one of their guys like one hand breach checks a Glock, and they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. We just got good with like this whole magic thing. You don't do that. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's fun to actually take those real world applications of, like learning from each other and playing with that in this fictional setting, which I'm really enjoying. That's actually a fun time.
Yeah, I think you can easily write Wargate novels. I think here's the deal. Like I started out as an indie writer. I got a big pub contract. That was a nightmare. I taught them the error of their ways of ever recruiting someone like me. But what indie fiction is, and it's pulp fiction, and not the kind with Bruce Willis as the boxer. It's pulp fiction, and all pulp fiction is really fun. And I think for the crowd that responds to Wargate, it's literally playing like what we did in GE, Jason and I, action figures in the dirt. Instead this time we're playing with a Marine scouting unit, and we just say, well, what would happen if they met this kind of monster? What would that look like? And sometimes it's completely one-sided, in that like in Forgotten Ruin, if a Ranger unit carrying Carl Gustavs in their weapons team squad and a 240 Bravo encountered a hill giant, they would smoke it. They would light it up, and then they would use area denial munitions from the Gustav against the hill giant. The hill giant wouldn't stand a chance. Well, that's not much of a novel. So we have to go, okay, well, what if we give the hill giant a bunch of orcs to overrun the gun team? What if we give the hill giant a wizard to kind of like blind their drone recon and stuff like that? And how do we make this more fun? And so ultimately, really what Wargate novels become is just this, what if this squad versus this monster squad? And how do we sort of balance that and have fun with that? And I think we play with character development and arc and, maybe some of the drama. But what we don't do is we don't go into Game of Thrones, where the drama between this lord and this lady and blah, 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 and everything like that eats up 3/4 of the novel, when I think people who write military fiction just kind of want to see war and action and weapon systems and fights. And they think that's what they want. But I think what they really want is America has a love of dudes that are willing to be in the military, people that support the military. There may be many things wrong in the United States, but the one thing that isn't wrong, and I had this experience during Desert Storm, in that I had this first sergeant who'd been in Vietnam and 25th Flight, and he said, "You are so lucky that you get to wear your uniform in an airport, because in my time they spit on us and they hated us." Now I can't speak for those times. I can't even understand those times. Whatever may be going on with the politics or the culture or whatever, the American people, the Vietnam vets, the people who are sitting in cancer wards, whatever, people who are going on to Kindle tonight to get a book, they love soldiers and Marines and airmen. And yeah, they even love the Coasties, and they probably even love Space Force, but they love people who want to go do those tip of the spear real world things. And they want to read stories about those people. And so that's what we're doing here. We're just doing that. And I think that's like, it's marketing gold. And it's such a privilege to do, because I think just watching the people that have gotten into Peter's series, they're people that maybe didn't know anything about the Marines or had ideas about the Marines. Obviously, the Wargate audience starts from a Ranger perspective, but I mean, they instantly glommed on to this group of Marines in it. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think especially with Ice and Monsters, what Pete did really well is exactly what you're talking about, where a lot of it is the drama is from the action, but it starts off, they're just schwacking these sea trolls and the goblins and the Dovos, and you're thinking it's like, oh, they're using these primitive weapons versus the Marines that have the modern firepower, It's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be very one-sided. But then it escalates, and every time they get into a new engagement, there's a tougher monster that those tactics don't generally work as well as they did previously. And so it's like,
Yeah.
right now they're just burning through ammo that they're going to need later, and they're running out. And so they have to get creative with that. And then when he jumps into what would be the drama, like, oh, well, this evil god is fighting against this evil god, and we need to embed and play these two against each other. The officer is into that, but the Marines are just like, I don't care. But just if we see something that looks mean, we'll kill it. Like,
and being Marines, like I would say to you guys, like you guys are probably saying, well, where's the lie? Yeah, I think you guys could tell Marines like, oh, Thor's over that hill and he's throwing lightning bolts, and you guys would, you know, do your Marine thing where you guys bitch about it, but you'd go get it done. That's like hardwired into you guys from basic. That's just, you know, fucking Thor, Satan, we'll go kill him.
that, and everybody wants Mjolnir on their belt instead of a tomahawk that they bought from REF.
And that's kind of the other thing that I've had to kind of explore with this series too, is we're a long ways from Big Marine Corps right now, and Recon especially does not like Big Marine Corps because Big Marine Corps does not like Recon.
Big Marine Corps doesn't like Marines, dude. Like that. It's not just
they dislike Recon a little bit more.
Because of all your cowboy hats.
Yeah.
You guys really are misfit children. You sit there and say, Mom and Dad don't like me more. No, Mom and Dad don't like me even more.
I'm going to go start my own Marine Corps with blackjack and hooks.
Exactly.
I'm going to call it Brannigan's Blackhearts.
Exactly. That's great.
But our guys have had to figure out, okay, we're in this distant place. Big Marine Corps may as well not exist. It doesn't exist here. So what's our mission now? And particularly by book 5, which I'm almost done with, it's largely, if it's evil, we're going to kill it.
Yeah. And that right there is the core of everything. And that's something that Jason and I dealt with in Galaxy's Edge. We did the same thing. And that really came from Jason. I don't know if he finished painting or whatever. Did he go away?
No, I'm just hanging out.
Jason had see, I'm an old guy. And I came from a military where I thought my officers were Achilles, and you know, I was in some nice high-speed units and did some stuff, and I thought everybody was great. And I thought that, you know, the GWOT kicked off, and I just saw it from the lens of being an older person who was in a different military. And then Jason was, you know, talking to me, like, and we wrote Galaxy's Edge, he wrote Legionnaire, and I was saying, I don't know, Jason, that these things are true. Like, as in, like, I don't know that there's this much dissatisfaction in the service right now. And
all officers are great, right?
Yeah. You know, and it was hard for me to believe, you know, and so, but then as we encountered, and he said, yeah, this is the way that it is. And had read a lot of accounts and had some personal knowledge and talked to people and was invested in it. And then when it came home for me is when I started meeting the GE audience and listening to their stories. And I was like, son of a bitch. What I noticed is all of the militaries are having an identity crisis. And as an old guy, I can just say, here's what I've learned about identity crises. The world and ex-wives and liquor store owners will try to disabuse you of your identity. And I think that's what everybody's suffering right now is they're waiting for someone else to validate them and tell them who that they are. But all of the services are, if they're going to survive, from the Marines to SOCOM to the Rangers, they're going to have to dig down and decide their own identity in the face of adversity. And the moment that you do that, the moment that you decide in your life who you are come hell or high water and fuck everybody's opinions, you will then be safe from these storms. But there are services and there are people and there are Marines and there are Army guys and everything like that who are allowing the powers that be to dictate what they are. And I can tell you exactly what they're trying to download on you today because I tweeted about it when this puke guy said the problem that's wrong with the 97 Heinlein movie of Starship Troopers is that combat vets are teaching children, and that shouldn't be allowed, and that's disgusting, and that's a show of total fascism. Well, one, that's not a guy who's read the book, so that was a problem right there. And he doesn't realize that all through the book, the combat vets are trying to dissuade Johnny Rico from actually doing what the entire training is there to dissuade people unless they are totally 100% into it. And then Heinlein's novel has a lot more philosophical aspects going into it and those things. Peter was on that thread. But the takeaway from that is that there is a culture. That guy has 81,000 followers. He is a made individual in the social justice mob. Yeah. There is a culture right now.
Florida too, with their new program for combat.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There is a culture right now that says, it's a neocon culture, and it says, I want you to go to Ukraine and I want you to fight bad Putin. I want you to be the Ukrainian cocaine Zelensky Avengers. And I want you to smoke China. And I want you to do all these things so that we can push the I am good button and so that the United States can be on top and I can do all these things. But when you come back, you're scum. You shouldn't teach my children. You shouldn't have any say in society, everything like that. So that's what the culture is trying to download on us right now. And it's why a lot of veterans, I think, are having problems. I think there's some other reasons too. But it's the services, the veterans were having the problems. Now the services are having the problems. And it's a problem of identity. And the moment, I learned it in my own life, the moment that you turn around and you say, this is who I am, I don't care what the fuck you think, you will be just fine at that point.
Yep.
That's me.
And Coop and I have both seen it, that a lot of this actually started sooner than anybody quite realized.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean, the bureaucratization got so bad. I mean, I've probably told this story on here before, but yeah, bad guy's over there. He's got the house full of ordnance. I'll take you over there right now. Nope, can't do it. It's not the mission. We'll come back in 2 weeks, at which point the guy who told us about it has his house on fire and his 70-year-old mother shot in the lung inside while it's burning down. Oh, too bad. Yeah. Nothing you can do about it. It's like, no, that's not what we're here for. Is just, oh, well, this is the mission and screw everything else.
Yeah. And I think what I like about the Wargate books and the Galaxy's Edge books, and Jason and I fought that battle in Galaxy's Edge, the emotional battle where the Legion decided it was going to be the Legion and do what was right. And I think people really responded to that. And what we get to do now in the Wargate books, what we're all doing, what I even talked to Coop back channel, I said, hey, we'd love to have something from you, buddy. Is we get to go back to, what if this deep state political bullshit didn't exist and the military unit just had to fight? And
that's the wish fulfillment aspect. It's not the fantasy creatures or the magic. It's what happens when you take the leash off. Let me be the warfighter I signed up to be without this borderline corporate overhead telling me why I can't do my job.
It's not borderline, brother.
Well, no, but in the corporate world, it's somewhat of a meritocracy. In the military and government, it's not at all.
Yeah. So Jason, as our CEO of the publishing thing, always challenges. Like he's like, you have to understand the books that we're writing here. And it's funny that you said wish fulfillment, because that's the word that he uses. And you're spot on. It like, I would have told you, oh, it's about the fun of fighting monsters. But you're really, that's actually a pretty revolutionary thing that you said right there. It is the wish fulfillment of being off the leash. And I think that's the John Wick fantasy too. But we just now do it with a military unit. And it's amazing how, as much as we're told in the culture that none of those things are relevant and stupid and they should be wished away to the cornfield, it's amazing how much those things actually make money in the culture, because that's what the people want. Money is the biggest test of what really is true.
I've been saying that about some of my stuff for years now. I write shooter wish fulfillment.
Yep.
The stuff that we wish we could have done.
Yeah. And I hope on some level, and we get it in GE, because we get a lot of guys who are struggling with some PTSD and the issues they've been through and things like that. And there'll be guys that say, hey, I take my GE book in with me to the VA. And so I hope like that whatever happens, like these kind of things, and especially like, I think, Coop was in a military, you're a Fallujah Marine, right, Coop?
Oh, no, I'm not a Fallujah. So I was in Marja.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Operation Strike the Sword and all that. So.
Yeah, and your unit there's been some guys they've struggled with PTSD and stuff like that. And I hope that like they can come to these stories and say, okay, all that political bullshit or whatever, I was part of this warrior culture, and this is the shit that we did. This is like, as in, this is what we're trained to do. This is what we do. This is who we are. The dark side always tries to bend you to its will, but you just got to dig back down and find the right side, the true side. You all became Marines because there was some Marine that you admired. Maybe you didn't know that along the way. Maybe you met that guy in basic training. Maybe you saw that guy in it, but you all became Marines because that was a guy you wanted to be.
Yeah. So mine was Ed Harris in The Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that movie. I was just real young, and my parents had only seen the TV cut, so they got the VHS version for us, thinking that it was the censored version. So I'm sitting there as a kid. My dad's this Navy officer academy grad, and so I'm always like, yeah, I'm going to join the Navy. I'm going to be a SEAL. I watch that movie and I just see Michael Biehn and all the SEALs just get slaughtered by the Marines. I was like, I want to be a Marine.
That's funny, because in 1985, I was revolutionized by a certain Marine named Private Hudson, who went out like a man.
Yep. And then it was game over from there, right?
Yeah. Except I ended up in the Army. So, but hey, I do remember. I went back to my mom after I saw that movie. I said, I think I want to be a Marine.
Yeah. Well, that was the most unrealistic part of that movie, was that they had all the best gear. I was like, no, the Colonial Army would have that.
Yeah.
The Marines would still be using AK-47s and M16s and all that.
But you go back and look at that movie, and their gear is kind of wonky. It's like, why are you guys all wearing lights?
Well, you can ask that about just about anything that Hollywood puts together for, like, why are the space helmets all lined with lights shining into your eyes?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the comment though that he's making is it's pretty much what happened in the GWAT. They wanted to watch in real time what you were doing so they could control you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But the lights thing on the inside of the helmet, whenever they do that for like this high-tech NASA thing, I'm right there with everybody being like, that's stupid. That would just blind the operator. NASA would never do that. Correct. The military, on the other hand, I could totally see doing that, so that like the officers could see the faces of their Marines and identify them, even though a Marine's like, I can't see shit. I don't know what I'm shooting at.
Well,
it's funny.
We'll direct you from the talk over the pred feed.
It's funny. Jason and I have gotten close on a couple of Hollywood deals where they were interested in GE, and then they read my Twitter account and they went away. But they always say, so your Legionnaires wear helmets, and we're like, yeah, and they're like, the actors are very handsome and we'd like to show their faces. How do we get them out of the helmets?
Yeah, because it didn't work for the Mandalorian or anything like that.
No, exactly.
Or Dread. But actually, the starting, I think it's chapter 2 of Legionnaire, has one of my favorite bits throughout the entire series, and it's exactly what we're talking about with the lights, is where Chun's just like, that's the problem. All that text is all over my visor when Tank would have done just fine. Like, I don't need to know who the manufacturer is. I don't need to know any of that stuff. Just tell me where the thing is and how do I kill it.
He's got to constantly shut stuff off. He's got to constantly click on the special settings that are manufacturer recommended. Hello, look at you, Blue Force Tracker.
Well, granted, Legionnaire would solve your problem that we want the lead actors to see the lead actor's face, because Ford runs his knife through the middle of the busted helmet within the first couple of chapters. So
right. Yeah, but that's only after, the point says, well, you got to wear it anyway.
yeah.
Okay, and people would be like, "Oh, that's unrealistic. Nobody would be that stupid." You're like,
You underestimate our power of stupid.
Yeah.
Sir, step away from the possible IED.
So where are you going next, Peter, with Ice and Monsters?
Well, kind of started a new arc with Swords Against the Night. A little less Frozen North and a little bit more. Well, it's kind of a combination of Arthurian Knights, and I may have borrowed a few things from some of the folk stories floating around Uraca Mesa down in New Mexico with shadow people and stuff like that. Did get a dragon in there.
Yeah. I was gonna say your guys need by the end of the series they need to be upgraded to like 0391 Paladin or whatever. An entirely new MOS for them.
But let's just say there's going to be some fairly cataclysmic events towards the end of book 6. And
It would better be. Swords of the Night sounds like the Lost Scorpions album from like 1989.
Oh, you got Swords Against the Night just came out last month. Wrapping up the Alchemy of Treason right now. And then we'll have Defending the Rock to wrap up this arc.
Well, Jason and I sort of use you when we talk to other authors or we talk to people in the publishing industry because, you know, there are other competing micro publishers, which is what we are. And some of them are a little unscrupulous and they're like, oh, we'll just take anybody and we want to throw all the shit against the wall and see who sticks. And what Jason and I try to do is what we've done with our own IPs is that we intentionally anticipate success and we build a brand. We don't just like, hey, do you guys like this? Did this accidentally get successful? I think we pulled out all the stops to do everything we could to launch you. You can do that, but if it's dog shit, it's not going to launch. You wrote a great series that people have dug into, and now we're able to turn around to our peers, and we're able to turn around to people that we're trying to get to work with us, so that we can grow this imprint, and we're able to turn around to our publishing partners, which is like Podium, which is like Amazon Publishing, our publisher, our production facility. They can only take so many slots for us to, and we're able to say, hey, we make hits and you're the guy that we're using. Now, hopefully you weren't a fluke. We're going to try that with Doc Spears, he's Green Beret guy. We're going to try that with his John Carter's Goes to Mars. But if we can just continue to, you know, produce this level of quality and success with good content like you've written, I think this is going to be something that people really dig. Like I said, I hope it helps the culture.
Yeah. And I've definitely taken some of your words to heart, Nick, about that, building that IP, because there's still a lot more I want to do in this world. So there's plans for a long time to come.
He listens to me too. He just ignores everything I say because I give stupid suggestions. Like, hey, you should have a magical glow strap that just makes him invincible. That'll be funny.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Writers operate in this place where you're seeking permission to succeed, because you kind of have to an extent. Like, people have to like we can all have this grand plan to write a Hobbit cozy, let's say, and you could just, and people could do that in fantasy. They get lost in all this planning, and they spend 15 years drawing maps and, you know, writing massive back histories and all this shit, and then you put it out there and the audience goes, man, I'm not interested, you know, and then so what that trains writers to do is like throw things out and then ask people like, are you interested in this? Is this successful? Blah, blah, blah. And then the audience might say, yeah. But in this publishing environment now, if there's not a place for them to go, if there's not a there, you know, if there's not a book 2 that you can immediately pre-order and really hopefully a book 3, well, the series will die because there's other authors out there literally dropping books left and right, multiple books and multiple series. So going to Coop's thing about, you know, this idea or that idea, when you get a series that's a hit, it's fun because the audience has given you permission to stay and hang out for a while and play. Like Deckard Cain said in Diablo 2, stay and talk a while. I almost got that gig in Hollywood. You now the like, it's like when Jason and I were doing Galaxy's Edge the first season, like you and the second season, you've got to stay on this horse that you've jumped on. And it's not as easy as it sounds. You've got to have a ton of ideas, because you don't want to do the thing where you just keep circling the drain over the stuff. I think that's where we get this really boring drama stuff, and kind of like, schoolgirl mushy romance. Like, here, I'm going to write this vintage, Tolkien-esque, Viking, battle epic. And then suddenly the writer's talking all about, this lady who loves that and everything like that. You're like, I did not come here for that. I came to split orc skulls. And so you need that. So the glow in the strap that can kill everybody, it's a good idea if it keeps the series moving forward. But when we play the Wargate game, nothing can kill everything, because that hill giant that they were going to smoke with the 240 Bravo and the Carl Gustav, it turns out that he's got a magic ring of missile deflection, and so your Carl goes wide, and the 240 just doesn't punch his fat, and now he's on you and pounding your team. But that's okay. Your assistant gunner is a werewolf, and he transformed and messed up, the giant's eyes, right? Well, every time. Everybody knows the AG will always go werewolf because he's just looking to get in on the action.
Yeah, I mean, how many times can you play the co-star? I mean, eventually you need the starring role.
I was going to say, I thought you guys said this was fantasy. That sounds exactly like my saw gunner in my first deployment. But
everybody loves a killer. Everybody loves a stud.
Well, Pete's also got an advantage in that, all of his readers can trust him to finish a series. Nobody's like hanging back, like, oh, I'll wait till it's over because I don't know if it's ever going to end. It was like Pete wrote 2 series in like 3 years.
Yeah, no, that's huge, and that's actually something I have a black mark on me, because I have one series that I haven't finished that I kind of started out in, and then I got distracted by Galaxy's Edge, and so that is a very sore spot for me.
No,
so I
that's
try to
have.
Yeah, it is, but you have to have integrity with the reader. And so, like, if you're the amount of people that just were looking for permission to work on a series, and the audience said, "Oh, this is great," and then they didn't work on it or do whatever, like, that is a huge turnoff to readers. I mean, it's a giant turnoff. So that's like, I would say that's one of Pete's strengths for sure.
Well, they said if you want it to be a job, you got to treat it like a job. So I've been working on that for 10 years now. So
most people most people want it as a lottery, not a job.
Yeah,
you nailed it.
Yeah. I was gonna build off something Nick said and just lost it. So
that's okay. It's probably not that good, and the FBI will play it against you at your defense trial.
Yeah, probably.
Walt's got a motivation for you to finish your thought, though, so you better come up with it.
Oh, actually, no, it was off something Coop said.
Never mind.
One of my motivations for word count for a long time was I've got to get at least double George Martin's daily word count today. Even if it's a crap day, if I've at least gotten double what he's done, then I'm ahead of the game.
I mean, that's
a really low bar to clear.
Wait, are you talking about his word count for books or live journal posts?
Books.
Okay.
Does he actually do live journal posts?
Oh, he wrote he wrote like 40,000 words complaining about Larry on his live journal a few years ago.
I started kind of in 2011. I wrote The Old Man on the Wasteland, and when that went to number 1, and he was right behind me at number 2 and 3, but his book had been out for like a year, and that was the last book that he's written, and everybody's like, "Oh, Game of Thrones is really great. The next one's going to be great," and everything like that. That was 2011. It is now 2022. I've been a part of, and written like almost 20 or 30 books, and that guy still has not written the next one.
I still love that cover for the Don Quixote style.
Oh yeah, that's Mike Corley who did that cover. He does a lot of GE stuff. He did the maps on Forgotten Ruin. He did a lot of the monsters for our game. He is a really, really, really great artist. And I said, I like this Picasso Don Quixote. Can you make something like that? So I had those made up. And those are like my favorite covers. I want to get those like posterized and put up in my house, but I don't want to be that guy. When people come over and like, "Oh, that's just a book I wrote." Yes.
I don't know. I think it's Savage Wars, the watercolor of Tyrus Rexo. That's still a good poster, no matter if you were the guys that wrote it. So. Oh
yeah. The Tyrus Rex series, Contracts and Terminations, where he looks like almost kind of like a flying samurai.
Yeah, it's very like Metal Gear Solid graphic novel.
Yeah, that was Chasing the Dragon, wasn't it?
Yes, that's Chasing the Dragon. That artist is Trent Kyanuga. He was a Blizzard artist. He's independent now, and he was a really great guy. I think when he first gave us covers, we were thinking something more visceral and kind of real and things like that. And then he gave us these very artsy covers, and I think like collectively we were like, but we liked him and we paid for him, and so we had to use them. And then the audience was like, "These are fucking great."
We sort of skirted this issue, but like I was just praising Pete for being able to get multiple series done in a very fast time span. But like the Wargate and the Galaxy's Edge lines, you guys ain't no slouches either, because you're doing. I think you're either wrapping up season 2 of Galaxy's Edge or starting season 3. So you've had a ton of those books out. You're getting other authors like J.R. Hanley with The Reservist. You guys have Forgotten Ruin, a Forgotten Ruin tabletop game, and you're publishing other people's stuff like The Lost and all that. Like, you guys don't have free time, I assume. Like, and your podcasts,
Yeah.
You're able to
and there's things like Jason runs most of the company and things like that, and he does our merch, and like our merch is like huge. Like when he told me what we were making on merch, I was like, shit, no one makes that on merch. And that goes to the IP thing, in that when you build an IP, those things are possible. But like our contemporary pure science fiction authors, they're not ready for merch, and they don't know how to handle merch. And if you don't kind of like, we've actually had to buy like serious, like expensive equipment just to run our merch. And now we're like even thinking of expanding and buying our own printer and things like as a silk screening service, that we can make our own shirts and things like that. So there's all those things. And then we listen to pitches from people. The hard part, I would say, is sort of like we offered a lot of writers the chance to work with us, and everybody's like, yes, I want to do this and everything like that. And then the hard part is like getting them to actually do it. That's why Peter is very unique. He actually did it, because we're trying to make a schedule. And like the way I think a big part of Peter's success was we were able to get him launched pretty quickly with an audiobook. And that's, the audiobook audience, I think, is larger than the ebook audience. Most people can't produce their own ebook. We were able to do that in-house. We can only do that if people actually get their books finished and give us something to work on. So like, that's the thing that we're scouting around for right now, is just people who can actually finish their work. And we also have a secret weapon, which is we have a Walt. Walt gets everything done for us, keeps our bacon together, keeps us sane, handles a lot of problems that we can't do because we're doing word count, or Jason's either running merch, running the company, and doing word count. I'm causing all the trouble I cause. So yeah, it's I think we're about to go into a period of we're still going to produce a lot of things, and we still have a lot of things coming out, but I think we're now going into a period of consolidation and management where we now want to produce other people. We still want to do our thing, but we feel that we probably need to dial back the output just a little, because we don't want to put out so much output that we start putting out crap. And I think we're at that point where we might need to pull back just a little, not for anything that we've done or blah, 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 but just because honestly, you can't do this all the time. You'll break. And I think Jason and I at various points have actually broken, you know, where you just like tune out for a month and you're like, no, I'm not capable of anything.
Well, you can never tell from looking at you guys from the outside. So,
as Jimmy Connors said, never let them see you breathe through your mouth.
oh yeah.
All right. I think it's dinner for me. We've done an hour. Are we good?
Yeah, I think we're good. It's been good having you on.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for bringing me on in the first place. And here's hoping we can continue working together for a long time to come.
Hey, for as far as Jason and Walt and I are concerned, like we love having you as part of it. You're great. We love you. You're a fun guy. You're easy to work with. You're legit and you're real. You're not phony. A lot of people who are writing are kind of phony. That like Coop said, they just want to hit the lottery. We're not interested in that. I won't go over what we're interested, because I think that was the entire podcast of me just mouthing off. But I know Coop, because he is a solid, rock solid commenter in the culture war out there. So
Yeah.
Coop, he's brilliant, man. Anyways,
If only I got paid by the word, you know.
Well, I have challenged Coop in one of these podcasts a couple months ago to have something out by the end of the year.
That was like 3 weeks ago, and
Was that only 3 weeks ago? Well,
probably not going to happen. But thanks for giving me a deadline, because then I can actually like sit down and focus on it. So
yeah.
now it's I'm not going to talk about it, but it fits in with a lot of what we were talking about on this stream. So
Hopefully we'll see a Wargate series from Coop eventually.
Yeah, you know, I think we back channel talked a little. It sounds like he's got some interesting things. I think Larry's encouraging him too. You know,
so it'd be like Wargate, but instead of, well, it still would lean into the fantasy, but it would call out the sort of Star Trek style sci-fi as what it is, which is space fantasy. Like you can wrap everything up in technobab all you want. It's still space magic. And so that's how it would apply to the Wargate. But I'm glad to get face to face with the War Gatekeepers, as you would, because you wanted to control this genre and this industry. So, and I think that's what you guys are. You guys are now the War Gatekeepers.
You know, I think we look at it like really good warfare, and really good warfare is conducted around doctrine, not necessarily you will go do this and you will do that, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, you as the planner and the doctrine developer have no idea what the situation is going to be out there. So don't give people, it's like a 5-paragraph operations order. Don't give people specific instructions. Give them your intent and then let them go be brilliant.
It's part of that wish fulfillment. Just let them know what you want and be like, hey, I don't care how you get it done, but get it done.
Yeah. Modern military unit, fantasy setting, perpetual taco machine. Ought to be a t-shirt, right, Walt?
I'm thinking I'm drafting it right now.
All right, guys, I'm going to bow out and feed my fat.
All right.
All right.
And with that,
great talking to you, Nick.
We will see y'all next month sometime.
Thank you. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Rah.
Look at it.